Welcome to another edition of the Thursday Night Throwdown. It's the big guy KG, sitting in with none other than the hockey extraordinaire. We've been waiting for this for a couple of weeks. Matty Ice, how you feeling
What's up, guy?
tonight?
Great. Just sitting here enjoying all the fun of the pre-trade deadline.
Ooh. So it don't matter what sport it is, man. I think the trade deadline the night before, I always think it's just like it's way better than anything else because you never know what can happen.
Agree. And I think for whatever reason, baseball and hockey have the better of the two trade deadlines. Because you get the occasional NBA and the occasional NFL deal, but it's not like baseball and hockey where they go crazy on trade deadline day, and it makes for some fun talk. That's for sure.
Most definitely. And we'll be joined in a little bit by the Midnight Rider, but we got to get into this thing. And this is the Sideline Junkies presents NHL Tonight. So please forgive me, but I got to do it.
Yes. That's the best thing about ESPN getting hockey coverage back is the songs back.
So let's get it started quickly because I know you got a lot to get to. So the floor is yours. Hit me off.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably go with what seems to be the breaking news of the night. The Penguins have been rumored to be throwing Jake Gensel out there, who is a unrestricted free agent after this season. They weren't able to get him signed to a long-term deal. And the Pens are clearly getting ready for a rebuild, kind of similar to the Caps with Sidney Crosby. It's been rumored to be three or four teams in the mix: the Rangers, the Vegas was still in it somehow, Vancouver, and then the Carolina Hurricanes. And it appears that the Carolina Hurricanes are going to be the team that's getting him. They've held Michael Bunting out of their lineup. He's got connections with the now GM of Pittsburgh because he was the GM in Toronto. So the details haven't been released, and they probably won't be now until after the game is over. But all the major reporters are saying that it seems like a principal deal is in place between Carolina and Pittsburgh for Carolina to get Jake Gensel, which is huge. The last 3 years, the Canes have been a we like our guys team. They've never really been one to make a move for a rental player, which is what the hockey term is for a guy that's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. They get the term rentals for the rest of the season. And the Canes have really not done this before. Now, there's talk that the reason why they're doing it is because they've always spoken with the agent, and they feel pretty confident they're going to be able to sign him after this. So I think that's why the push is there. So we'll see what the deal actually plays out. But that's a huge piece for Carolina, who always needs scoring in the playoffs, and Jake Gensel with his 34 career playoff goals can definitely bring that for them.
Hmm. Now, out of everything that happened, you already know where I'm going. The Caps made some moves that I wasn't expecting them to make. Does it help the Caps or does it hurt them? Because I remember when we asked the question, I think it was about 2 weeks ago on a Thursday night throwdown. We asked, was it real or was it fool's gold?
Yep.
And the moves that the Caps made, you immediately said it's real. We're gonna run with it. Is it still real or has it moved to fool's gold?
I don't think the moves hurt them per se in the sense of what they could still accomplish this year. And the only reason why I feel that way is because somebody's going to have to finish third in the Metro. That's why I was looking up real quick. Right now, they're seven behind Philly, but Washington has 3 games in hand. And games in hand mean that they played 3 less games. So in theory, if you win those 3 games, that's 6 points. So that would put them only a point out at that point in time. So somebody's got to finish third, and the Flyers have made a couple moves too. So could a youth movement still work to get third place in the Metro to get you into the playoffs? Yes. I mean, I think that I don't think they're going to be able to get the wild card spots. Tampa Bay and Detroit, they're actually a few more points behind, but those two teams I think are playing a little bit better than what Philly is. So could they get in? Yes. I mean, that the Mantha deal was okay. They got a second round pick this year and a fourth round pick in 26. Compared to what other teams were getting for players like that, it's a little light. I mean, it's not like it's a terrible trade, but it's an okay return for what Mantha is. Then earlier tonight, they just traded away, or earlier today, they traded away Joel Edmondson, which is a fifth or sixth line. He's a fifth or sixth D, so he plays on the third line of the defense. He's been good for them this year, and he's an older guy. They got a third and 24 and a fifth and 25 from Toronto for him. So I think that's a pretty good return for what Edmondson is. I actually kind of like that deal better as far as the return value goes. But both deals are fine. You know, you're building for the future now, and that's what the Caps they're at. And the easiest way to do that is by acquiring draft picks. And you know, the NHL draft is similar to a baseball draft. It's not like the NFL draft where guys get drafted and they start playing immediately. You know, these guys might sit in juniors or play college for a couple of years, but you still can't keep their rights. So it's similar to a baseball draft where you know you're drafting a guy, and other than the top really 3 to 5 picks, those are usually the only guarantees where they're going to play in the NHL the next year, and even them they're not. So they're okay. I mean, I think they're okay moves for the Caps. I wouldn't say they're out of it, because that third spot I think is open. I think Philly's going to continue to come back down. The only problem is that right now I think Carolina's pretty much locked into the 2 spot. So you'd be looking at a matchup with Carolina, and you know I'd always be nervous as being a Carolina fan. I'd always be nervous about going into a series where number 8 is on the other side and what he can do. Especially if the Canes get Gensel, I would like their chances of getting through that series.
And we are joined as promised by none other than the Midnight Rider. How you feeling tonight, sir?
I'm good, sir. Got a little caught up, and I would love to say it was traffic. It was really the idiots at the liquor store trying to decide what they wanted once they got to the window. And nobody knowing, like they were budgeting at the window. I was like, come on, what are we doing here? Like, jeez. And it's like, oh, give me this. And it wasn't just one, it was like 2 of them, 2 of the lines, and then so one line was moving. So, and it was a new guy, so I had to actually tell him what I wanted. I don't know, a little inconvenience, but got settled, ready to go. Did you?
Did we what?
On the intro?
Did you? I can't do it like you do, so you got to do it right.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Let me see if I can get it right. Friday Eve. And finally, no, that's not it. That's not ours. Acknowledge me? No, that's not ours either. Oh, when everybody's walking around and they know what day it is, they start talking about Thursday night, Throwdown. Yeah.
I live for it every week. Gotta get it. I can't do it right, so I gotta get it.
Yeah, let the
Felix Bass is in the comments. Said bold take. Help me out there, man.
Vladimir Tarasenko
takes Florida back to the finals.
It's possible for sure. He's a good ad for Florida. I mean, Florida didn't need a lot. They were one of the teams that were pretty strong to begin with. They've got what I would call the it of for going into playoffs. They can play a gritty style, so they really can play any way. They can score goals. If you want to play a defensive game, they can play a defensive game. If you want to play a punch people in the mouth type game, they can. So Tarasenko goes to Florida. They only had to give up a 4th in the 24 to get him. And then what's really weird is if they win the cup, it goes to a 3rd in 2026. The NHL loves to do these conditional draft picks, you know, so they'll get this pick if they do this good, and if they don't, then they get this pick. Normally, the conditional draft pick is better if they win. This one, it's actually they give. I mean, the round is better, but it's 2 years away. So Ottawa kind of got hosed in that deal, but they gave Tarasenko, who signed a 1-year deal, a full no trade clause. So he basically got to pick what city he wanted to go to, and the only city that he gave them was Florida. So when you limited the team to 1, you limit what bargaining power Ottawa had in the deal. But Tarasenko, and he's playing on their first line tonight. That's why I was looking to see if he's done anything with them yet, because he's going right to their first line tonight, which will be interesting if that holds up or not. But it's a good, no score in the first there yet so far. But he's it's going to be a good fit for them. And he doesn't have, the great thing is on that team, he doesn't have to be the Vladimir Tarasenko of 3 or 4 years ago. And I guarantee he's going to score a big goal for him somewhere in the playoffs. Um, Florida's loaded. But for them, it all comes down to how Bob plays. If Bob plays like he did last year in the playoffs, they'd be the Eastern Conference Final favorite for me. But Bob's been known in playoff series to get a little shaky at times, but he didn't do that last year until the finals, and even the finals he wasn't terrible. Just Vegas was a machine. But yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. Between them and Carolina and the Rangers, and Boston, you can make an argument in the East for any one of those 4 teams getting to the finals.
Any questions there, Midnight Rider?
I was trying to piggyback and wait to see what we had. Talking about the Caps. So the Caps are doing something interesting on their build because, and I think they have 7 picks this year, and then like 9 the next 2 years, something like that. So with the Caps doing what they're doing, with the Penguins doing their moves, do you kind of see this rivalry having a, in fact itself, just be rebuilt because both teams are in a rebuilding or rephasing point?
I think it's going to have to at some point. Like it might take a year or 2 off while they're both rebuilding, because I don't think the Caps are done trading yet. I think before tomorrow at 3, I'd be shocked if Max Pacioretty is still part of the Capitals by tomorrow at 3. Nick Dowd's another one that I could maybe see going. He's got a year left on his deal, so he'd be one that, in theory, the Caps should, he's a 4th line center. I could see the Caps being able to get a little bit more for him because he's not a quote unquote rental player. Going before tonight, I thought maybe they might trade one of their goalies, but it looks like Kemper got hurt or something, or it seems like, or he's sick, so he's being held out. Because I think if you're going to trade Lindgren, you wouldn't be playing him tonight and risking injury, but they probably couldn't get the other kid up in time, so you got to play somebody. Right. So I could still see them maybe moving one of those 2 goalies, before 3:00 tomorrow, and then you just got to see. I mean, their coach has coached a lot of these kids, so it's going to be time. And then the question is, can they do it at the next level? And what other pieces can you get? And then how in the hell do you work Ovi into this all? Because you can't trade him. You just can't. I mean, you can't do what Chicago did and trade when they traded away Patrick Kane, when they finally did, when they realized, okay, we've got to go into full. It's time to let it go, because you got to have him break that record in a Caps jersey. You just have to. You can't have him break that record in any other jersey than a Washington Capitals jersey. So, it's going to be that fine line of how do you do it. And I'm sure Ovi, though, doesn't just want to be part of a rebuild. He probably wants to go for another cup. So how quickly can they do it? They'll have some cap space next year because the cap's going to go up. And with some of these, especially if they move off some of these salaries, and then, then there's the whole, Kuzi thing too. What, they waived him. He accepted going down to Hershey. Maybe he can rebuild his game a little bit. Maybe this, is what he needs. A wake up call to have a few more good years out of him. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting offseason in Washington D.C. for sure. What these guys do.
On each side of ledger, I don't know if you've already covered this, but who were the winners today from each conference?
I would say right now, Vegas got a lot stronger. I mean, you thought that they would be done because they made an early move. Where's my Vegas notes here so I can pull them up here? The first move they made, one of the first moves yesterday. They were able to get Hannafin first from, or not first. That was the second move that they made from Calgary. Where's their other move here? I had it here, and now I freaking lost them here. They got Hannafin. Oh, they got Mantha, though. That's the other guy they got. I was trying to draw a complete point because we were talking about Mantha. So, yeah, so they got Mantha. They add in a guy, Hannafin, so they improve their D. A lot of people don't like the way that Vegas does things because they put Mark Stone on long-term injured list, and basically what that does is it allows them to use that cap space, and then in the playoffs, the cap goes away. So you don't have to then bring Mark Stone back by getting rid of a player. You just add him back on, and the cap doesn't matter anymore. They did that last year with a couple guys. Tampa Bay's known to do it. It's a rule in the NHL, and I don't get mad at him for it. I'm like, hey, why doesn't your team, if you lose a player like that, you take advantage of that loophole. So I think Vegas is really gotten better. That they would be my winner out west. It's weird, like the West has just been loaded up. Ed, Edmonton made a couple good moves. They got Adam Henrique from Anaheim. That's a good move for them. I still think they need a D, and there's a couple guys out there that they could get. Um, Colorado got better, and they got a couple of guys that they added on the third and fourth line that can hit and are some bruisers. So up until the move before we went on the air with the Canes making, I'd probably say some of those teams out west were the winners, and Florida would be the winner out east. We're going to have to see how this all plays down with with Gensel going and for what to before we finalize it and see if there's any deals out there, because there's still some guys out there that could move.
In terms of, there was a person from Pittsburgh that we were keeping an eye on.
Yep.
Did he get moved today?
Jake Gensel, yeah, it's rumored. It looks like he's going to Carolina. The deal's not been finalized, and both teams are playing right now, so it probably won't be finalized. But the Canes are holding out a player in Michael Bunting, who seems like a fit for what would go back to Pittsburgh. So it's just what prospects are the Canes giving up, and what draft picks are they giving up. But that probably won't be finalized or announced until probably after the game tonight, because both teams are now playing, and teams don't usually like to announce trades while the teams are on the ice.
And then in terms of, like, I saw a lot of picks getting moved today. Is that because we're doing a lot of rentals and we're not having a lot of actual people that are going to stick around?
Yeah, you don't usually get a lot of what I would call a typical NHL trade that you'd see in the offseason, where you're getting a player for a player. There were a couple of those deals today, but to be honest with you, they're more like minor league guys. So those deals don't really factor in, but those deals get made a lot of times, or a lot of teams will sign a guy that will become an unrestricted free agent because they haven't signed them yet. So they've got to sign by a certain time in the summer. Like Carolina moved one of those guys he hasn't been signed yet for, then they got a 6th-round pick for him. It's because they probably don't see that they're going to sign him. The trades today, like Colorado, there's only been 3 official trades so far. Toronto with getting Edmondson, Colorado got a couple guys, Brandon Dalhume from Minnesota, and then Yakov Turinin from Nashville. Both of those guys are going to be 3rd, 4th line guys. Probably the biggest deal was the ones that happened yesterday. I mean, the 6 deals yesterday, Tarasenko started it all off. Colorado got Sean Walker, the D from Philly, which really, going to help them out. They trade away one of their forwards, Ryan Johansson, in that deal. So that was kind of one, but then Philly immediately waived Ryan Johansson. So it'll be interesting to see who picks him up. I don't know if he's cleared waivers yet or not. I forgot to look today to see if anyone picked him up. But they replaced him with a forward with Casey Middlestat from Buffalo, he's decent. He's got some good potential, especially on that team. So Colorado just got a lot bigger. Edmonton with Adam Henrique, those were the deals yesterday. A lot of the big people fell off the board yesterday with the 6 trades.
Is there anybody still on your list of candidates to be traded still available?
Yeah, I mean, the big one I think right now would probably be Tyler Toffoli. He was held out of the lineup for New Jersey tonight, which is usually a sign of there's a trade coming. So I would imagine that he is going to go somewhere. Frank Vetrano in Anaheim is another name that we've heard thrown around quite a bit, but so far has not moved. I don't know if I'm dealing Henrique if he's going to go or not. Mark Stahl's a defenseman in Philly, who's also UVA coming up. If Philly is officially going into, if we make the playoffs, fine, but we're going to still look to continue our rebuild. I could see them trading him. Jason Zucker is another seasoned veteran. He got held out of the lineup in Arizona, usually a sign that he might go. Pavel Buchnevich in St. Louis, who's got 20 goals this season. He's got 1 year left on his deal, but they've been, they've said that they're willing on trading him. So he's one to keep an eye on. And then the goalies, it's weird. Like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I thought there'd be 3 or 4 goalies that can move. We've had no goalies move. I'm not sure that a goalie will move anymore, because Marc-Andre Fleury said he's not waiving his no trade clause, so he's staying put for sure. You got the goalies in Washington, maybe one of them move. You've got Jake Allen in Montreal that could maybe move, but none of them are are guys that are going to lead a team that's on the bubble into the playoffs. I don't know that any of those goalies exist. The only exception would be Jacob Markstrom in Calgary. He's been the Devils are still interested in him supposedly. He's got term, but he's got a lot of contracts. So if they get him, they're going to have to move somebody, and I don't know if that will happen before tomorrow at 3:00.
So who would be the contender that the goalie would end up going to? Like who's the goalie hungry teams in this scenario?
There's not. I mean, I think most of it's weird this year. Like I really think right now the 16 teams that are going to make the playoffs are pretty set. I don't know that any of them probably feel like they would need to improve their goalie to get in or just to move up. They've all got a pretty good solid 1A. New Jersey is the one exception. Their goaltending's been terrible this year, but they're 7 points back now. Does them getting Markstrom get them back into the hunt this year with Philly likely falling off? Maybe. So that they would be the one team that truly, that's in the playoff picture still that needs a goalie because their goaltending has been dreadful. Got the coach fired. Lindy Ruff got fired, and that's probably a big reason why. It's because of how bad their goalie play's been this year.
So I know I put this out a long time ago about me making my comeback, and no goalies getting traded. I know people need goalies. I mean, I know you can help me get signed so I can get in here because I need some of this money, number one. But number two, is it me? Am I the old man shaking his fist at the cloud, or is it actually true that goaltenders not lasting as long as they used to? Like you could have a solid goaltender for at least 5 to 10 years, maybe, but it seems like these guys are flaming out after 2 or 3 years.
It's changed. I think the goalie position has changed in a lot of ways. To me, it's still like the quarterback in the NFL. Like you need to have a good goalie to win. But the days of the Marty Brodeurs and the Patrick Roys playing 60 games a year, I think those days are done. And in some ways, it's kind of weird because the goalie is also at the same time kind of turned into the running backs of the NFL, where there's so many good ones now. You're seeing a lot of teams that are willing, instead of giving a guy $7-8 million a year, they'd rather go out and get 2 really, really solid guys, spend 3 to 4 and then 4 to 5 on their top end guy. Their top end guy is only going to play 50 games. Their lower guy is going to play anywhere from 20 to 30 games. It's just been a different approach to the goalie position where, you still, when you get to playoff times, most teams just roll with one guy, but through the regular season, it's not where Marty Brodeurs coming out and playing 65 games. That those days seem to be gone. And a lot of that too is just there's a lot more back-to-backs in the NHL now. And it's goalie's the one position where normally you got a guy that starts night 1, night 2, it's going to be the backup that plays. They very rarely do they go both games in a back-to-back.
Can you kind of break down the hockey schedule for us? Because you talked about the back-to-backs, and I noticed the last couple of weeks, the Caps have played a couple games back to back, and then they'll have a break, and then they'll come back and maybe play, every other day for a little bit, and then another break. This is the simplest way to break it down.
It's so weird. Like there's always each team, which the NHLPA bargain in, which is something I like. Usually around the All-Star break, each team gets a 5-day break, and during those 5 days, they're basically away from the team. So that always factors in right around just before the trade deadline. And this time of year, they always. The NHL loves 3 games and 4-night sets for some reason, or back-to-back nights. They just do it more than anyone else. And normally, if you got a 3-game and 4-night set, it's then followed with 2 or 3 days where then you're not playing because especially the 3 games and 4 nights, it's brutal. It's just a lot of hockey that's going on. So they then normally when you have a 3 and 4, then you come off and then you get at least two games without a game. Occasionally, you'll go back to back. And the March is always busy. Most teams are playing 14 games in the month of March. So, over 30 days, that means you're going pretty much, you're going every other day, which I think is how the NHL with the players would rather. They like it when they get on a routine of, play one day off, play one day off. But, you're in a lot of it too because these arenas are getting more and more booked. So if they got college basketball, they got NBA basketball or concerts. So you're going off of when your arena's got availability too, which creates for some interesting ebb and flows in the schedule.
Oh, okay. So I've noticed that some teams, like when they're playing the back end of a double, a lot of times those teams come out a little lethargic early on, especially if they have to travel. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, you'll have some team like, and I don't know. You think if you had a back to back that you could at least have them one team be at home both games, but that doesn't normally happen that often. There's a lot of times where one team will be the home team the next night that they're visiting. Like Carolina just had their set. They Columbus played the night before in New York, so Carolina was already in Columbus, waiting for Columbus to get there because they played Columbus the very next night. That happens a lot, and especially then you add in with the team playing Canada the night before, you got to clear customs. So if you got to go from a back to back night, there's sometimes you might not be getting into laying down in a bed in a hotel room until 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, turn around and have to play again at 7 o'clock that night. So it's hard to get yourself up, right at this puck drop, especially if you've got a team that's been sitting there waiting for you. Um, every now and then you see though where it works out the other way, where that team, because they play the night before, they're just on pure adrenaline and they play better, especially if you got a team that's playing the second of back to back, and like this happened earlier this year for I can't remember which team it was, and they're playing against a team that had 5 days off. So the
Right.
team, so the team's coming off a 5-day break. They were flat the first period because they hadn't played in 5 days, going up against a team that played the night before. So it's kind of an interesting mix that the NHL loves to do.
I got you. I got you. You got something, KG?
You kind of got it on me when you asked about winners and losers, because that's what I was getting ready to go. I need to know who's the winners and the losers.
Well, we haven't
I
said
got
losers, so let's go there.
yeah, let's
Are
go
there
losers.
losers today?
Losers, I would probably call Calgary the biggest loser of this all so far. They've traded away Noah Hannafin. They traded away Chris Tanev earlier. That and these were all guys that to me I think were signable. They're and they they're not like they were going for their second contracts. I don't know that any of them would have necessarily been big. They also traded away Elias Lindholm. That was the first trade of back in late January. That was the very first deal that went down. So they traded away 3 guys. I mean, they're all UVAs. I think they probably would have been able to maybe sign 1 or 2 of them. So I'm not really sure what Calgary is doing. Calgary and Ottawa are the 2 teams that you're just kind of scratch your head at and trying to figure out what's their game plan. How do you sell to your fans that you're going to build for the future when you're trading away guys like this. So those they to me would be the one, they're a seller just because I don't know that they had to be a seller this year. They probably shouldn't have been. They should have been in the thick of it. And now it's a question of where are they going to go. So I would consider them to be the biggest loser. It's weird. Maybe Vancouver, they made the first big trade. They were they made the big splash. But since they traded for Lindholm, they're 5-6-2. So they've kind of been stuck, and they're just not really, and with all the other teams that have made moves around them to get better, where before I thought Vancouver was going to be maybe a neat story come playoff time, and they still could be because they still got a really good core. Now they almost kind of maybe need to make another move by 3 o'clock tomorrow to keep up with the Edmontons, Colorados, and Vegas.
It's funny you brought up Calgary, because that's kind of where I wanted to go next, because I was looking at the draft evals, or not the draft, the trade evals, and it was funny because I kept looking through the results and everybody had A's. It was like maybe a B and a B minus somewhere, and then it was Calgary with the C. So I envied your task for trying to find losers today, because it seemed like the sports media of the world thought that pretty much everybody helped themselves in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, I didn't want to ask about the losers because I didn't know how many we had, but I'm glad we did, because you just confirmed what I saw all day today.
Yeah, it's hard. You really don't know until you see like what do these draft picks turn into, right? Does it turn into a player that ends up being a stud? Then maybe you look at it a couple years later and you say, hey, they got a good return out of it. But in the right here today, I would, just because of where it puts them, there to me would be on the losing side of it. And if, by all accounts, this next coming year's draft doesn't have quite the stock up front. It doesn't have your Connor Bedards in it, your Adam Fertilli's in it. Not saying the first couple guys to get drafted won't probably make the roster, but it's not. It's supposed to be an okay draft. It's a deep draft in the sense that there's some NHL talent players out there, but there's not a Connor Bedard in this year's draft that's going to be a franchise changing player.
Got you.
Well, I got one question. I'm pulling this from the Athletic because they had trade targets, top trade targets for deadline week. They had 5 players. Jacob Markstrom from the Flames, Matt Dumba from the Coyotes.
Yep.
Tyler Toffoli
yep.
from the Devils, Frank Vetrano from the Ducks, and Jake Gutzel.
Getzel. That's the one we took. That's
who we talking about.
Off with. Yeah.
Now, the first thing they updated, this is about 17 minutes ago, why teams should avoid a Matt Dumba trade. Is this? I mean, if he was getting traded and they put out something like this, don't that kind of hurt his value?
It could. Dumba's one of those guys. I mean, he's not going to be a needle mover anyway. He's a 5th or 6th line D. A team maybe I could still maybe see in Edmonton or even they would maybe be a team, or Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay really wanted Noah Hannafin from Calgary. They got shut out on them. Tampa Bay had lost one of their big defensemen, Sergachev, for the rest of the year. He's out from an injury. So, and they're sitting there in that 1-2 wild card spot. I think they'd like to get a D. If Duma's the guy, would that be a win? Probably not. I think the better one to get would be in Ottawa, Jacob Chernikin. He's one that he could at least be helpful. I think he'd be the one that will probably go tomorrow. If Dumba goes, it's just a team grasping because they feel like they got to make a move, as opposed to where I think he would actually. Oh yeah, that's the piece that's going to help get them over the top. He's not that type of a D.
In terms of, since we've been talking playoffs, let's kind of give people a peek into the window of the structure of the playoffs.
Yep. So what you have. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, just kind of break it down for us so we know, because I know there are teams that are like third in their division. So I think they automatically fall in the wild card. I'll let you break that down for us.
Yep. So you have 8 teams in each conference that make the playoffs. So you got the Eastern Western Conference, all are going to have 8 teams that make it. You have 4 different divisions. The top 3 teams in each division make the playoffs. Then you have the next 2 highest point teams are your wild card teams. So they'll be in spots 7 and 8. The 2 and 3s in each division play each other in the first round, no matter what their final points are. The top team between the 2 divisions will get the lowest of the 2 wild cards, and then the other division winner will get the second wild card. You basically stay in your division then for round 2. So, like as an example, we'll use the Metro division. If the season ended today, the Rangers would win the division. They would play. They would actually get. I think in theory they would get Tampa, or no, they would get Detroit, because Detroit right now is listed as wild card 1 and Tampa's wild card 2, and that would go to Florida right now. And Carolina and Philly would play each other. Then the winner of the Rangers and Tampa would play the winner of Carolina and Philly. The same thing would happen over in the Atlantic Division, and those 2 would play in the Eastern Conference Finals. Same thing happens in the Western Conference, and then that's your Stanley Cup Finals. So your Stanley Cup Finals is always the winner of the Eastern Conference against the winner of the Western Conference.
Now that structure changed maybe 10 years ago?
Well, they always throw around different things that they like to do with this with the structure. I think this is like the 3rd or 4th year where there's been the 2 where they went back to kind of that divisional format. It's not just 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. They kind of went back to the divisional structure, which it kind of brings back some old school vibes, but I would still like to just see 1 play 8, 2 play 7. Doesn't matter what division they're in. But I think what the NHL is trying to do is they're trying to get some more rivalries created, and you do that by having consistent playoff series against one another. So I think that's what their goal is in it. I don't really know that it's panned out. Maybe if Carolina and Florida meet in a second year Eastern Conference final, where those two teams towards the end of that series last year kind of got a little bit of hate going, that could be a little fun, but I think that's what they ultimately go for. They're trying to get some rivalries out of the way they do the playoffs.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask this as a follow-up because this is a natural lead to it. I've asked this question before, but now I got a hockey guy to kind of break it down for me. Do you think that format, because they've done that a lot, and that ended up having the Caps and the Penguins playing each other a lot earlier instead of playing in the conference finals, they're playing each other in the second round. So
Mhm.
do you think that helped that rivalry, or do you think we got cheated because of Ovi versus Sid conference final is more important than a Ovi versus second round?
I think both. I mean, ultimately, the further that matchup can happen, I think the more intense it would be and the better it would be. At the same time, almost being guaranteed that you're going to see Ovi against Sid in the playoffs was unique and fun. With Pittsburgh getting the better end of that more times than probably what Caps fans would like to see. Um, but ultimately, I think the NHL it's the true holy grail to get. You got to win 16 games no matter what. So when you play them, it's a lot of teams just kind of look at next team up. Survive in advance, get through your first series, and then worry about because you don't really after that you don't really control who you play. So you just got to worry about your own game and worry about yourself and beat who's next.
Got you, got you. Um, so after today, we got another stretch until what time tomorrow?
3 o'clock tomorrow is the official trade deadline. So you'll see because the trades aren't officially official until they get faxed into the NHL office. So they have to get faxed into the NHL office by 3. You'll still see a few trades that become official after 3 o'clock because the league has to vet them and make sure that that they're okay. I mean, as far as like they're especially if draft picks are involved, they're making sure the teams trading a draft pick that they actually have and all that good stuff. So um, you'll still see a few trades trickle in after 3 o'clock, but for the most part, 3 o'clock tomorrow, that's it. And it's not like baseball where you could make a trade after the trade deadline and they just have to go through waivers. Once the trade deadline's that's it. There's no other trades in between until the new season starts.
And then how often in the NHL does the trade get voided or nullified? I mean, does that
Uh,
really happen often?
I can remember one. I can't remember what teams or what player. I think it was somebody from maybe it was Ottawa and Colorado. I think it was last year or 2 years ago, but they thought they had the trade to work out, but it was going to put one team over the cap. So their cap number was off, and then so that trade got voided because the cap, when they turned it in, the cap numbers weren't right. And there was no time because it was like a last second trade. There was no time to fix it, so that was it. The player had to go. The players had to go back to the team. So that's the only time I can remember a trade being voided is because they didn't have the cap figured out right. I can't. I think it was Colorado and Ottawa, but I could be wrong on that. But it was a couple years ago. But that's been it. It doesn't happen that often.
Anything else you got in your notes, Matt, that you want to make sure we get to the people?
Um, I think we covered most of them. There's a couple of the big trades early. That kind of lose their light. Sean Monahan went to Winnipeg from Montreal for a first rounder. It's kind of weird when a trade first happened. I wasn't too sure that was going to be a big move, but he's had going into Tuesday, he's had 8 goals in the 12 games he's played with them, and Winnipeg's 8-3 since they acquired him. So that seems to be a trade that's worked out well. Chris Tanev, one of the other ones from Calgary, went to Dallas. That's really Dallas's only move, but I like it. It's a D that fits with what Dallas does. I think it's going to make Dallas a hard out. Toronto, it's the look. Canada hasn't won a cup since 1993. Um, when
Wow.
Montreal beat Gretzky and the Kings, and I don't even know if they would have won that one if Marty McSorley isn't playing with an illegal stick in that game against Montreal. Then they give up the goal and they lose that game because LA comes back home tied 1-1. I think that series may have gone completely different. But so Canada is dying to win a cup. Their two best chances, are probably Edmonton is number one and Toronto is number two. Um, I think Edmonton has made some moves where they could finally get over the hump. The whole question for them, and it's been the same problem ever since they've gotten all these great players in McDavid and Draisaitl, is going to be goaltending and defense. I don't know that they've added anybody on D that really makes me feel great that's going to be better. But since they fired their coach and they won that 16-game winning streak last time we talked, their goalie Skinner has been lights out. And if he can keep playing that way, I think Edmonton's got the best chance. And Connor McDavid is electric. He scored a goal in overtime last night, and he assisted on a goal that was scored in overtime last night. That just was a beautiful play. So they're the ones, and the Toronto's the other one that I think everyone would love to see Toronto win it, but they have been so snake bitten when it comes to the playoffs. Last year they finally win a series, and they got all cocky, thinking that they're gonna take down Florida, and Florida just stomped them, which I secretly love because I love watching Toronto lose. It's one of my favorite things. So those are the two teams that it's going to be really interesting to see if the moves that they made help them get over that hump and get Canada a Stanley Cup.
All right, cool. Well,
before we switch gears, this just came across on ESPN. Alex Ovechkin collects a rebound and slats home his fourth. I'm sorry, 840th career goal. So you know what that means. You got to light the lamp. Midnight Rider, you wasn't here for that, was you?
Mm-mm.
I don't think he did the lamp. I think he just did the NHL. Yeah. Yeah, Washington's actually up 4-0 right now.
I was going to say, because when I got out of the car, they were 1-0. There was a high stick on Tom Wilson in the first 5 minutes or so. So they had like a 4-minute power play. And I didn't hear anything after that because I was getting out of the car, running in to get with you guys.
Yeah, they're
anything else hockey related? Because we kind of want to switch gears. I know we're going to throw you a little bit of a curveball.
Yeah, they're up 4-0 on the Penguins right now, which Penguins just trading their way against. Also, who knows what that team is coming out onto the ice as far as their attitude right now, but it's not looking good. So yeah, Nick Jensen scored his first goal for the Caps too.
Okay.
You got I think it's Nick. I hope it's Nick. I think it is, but I could be wrong because I'm old and I'm forgetful. Can I shout out my jersey real quick? I went with, because I was debating which one to go. This is the Toledo Gold Diggers. So remember when I was talking about Micah Ruzioni? This was the team when I was 8 years old that got me into hockey. So I went with going with the Toledo Gold Diggers tonight, the old green and yellow. I don't think enough teams wear green. I love green jerseys. I don't know why more teams should wear green. All right.
No, because I told you I was a fan of just every 5 minutes you just take your screen off, throw a jersey on, and come back.
I told you we'd be on air for 3 or 4 hours. I think I got 30 or 40 of them up there. That'd be like a constant change.
Hey man, I watched the Super Bowl with my buddy. It was the Pittsburgh-Seattle Super Bowl, and I swear to you, he has not every Steelers jersey, but he's got a ton of Steelers jerseys. And trust me, we got to see a rendition of every person's jersey that he had in his collection during that Super Bowl. So I wouldn't put it past anybody to do that. But since we were on football, Matt,
let's do it.
Quick segue. Raiders, and you don't have to give me anything official. You don't have to give me a pick. But, what do you want to see from your team this offseason?
Well, I mean, I want to see it. I like Adrian O'Connell. I think he was fine, at quarterback. He seems to fit in well with Pierce. But by all accounts, look, we've all heard the rumors. I've heard the Justin Fields rumors. I've heard that the Raiders want to move up to get they really like the kid from LSU, Daniels. And he's got a connection with Pierce as well. So I think that's the kid that they all want. But isn't that the same kid that it seems like Washington wants at 2 as well?
It is.
From what I've heard.
It is.
So, yeah. So, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, Washington's not going to trade out of 2 if that's who they want, right? So, right. And if you're trading in to get 1, I don't know that then you're not taking Daniels at 1. So you think that you'd have to take Caleb Williams, although I think it'd be a great FU to Caleb Williams' agent, who's basically like, no, I'm not playing for Chicago no matter what. If someone made a move and then doesn't take him at 1, that would kind of be funny to me. But I like those type of unique little fun draft stories. So, I want, then the running back, it seems like I thought they might franchise Jacobs, but they didn't. But I've heard Barkley is a rumor out there, but I didn't think free agency officially started, but yet it seems like guys are signing deals. So
So you got a lot of guys that are either re-signing with their clubs, or if you were on a practice squad last year and somebody wants to pick you up. So that's how Washington gets Ertz, because
Gotcha.
he ended the year on Detroit's practice squad. So he's not part of their official roster. So essentially he's like a free agent in that sense. So that's how they were able to make that move. Since I have you and I haven't done much research, tell me something good about the Tribe. Well, the Guardians. The
Guardians,
Guards.
starting pitching. They will go as far as their starting pitching goes. Because Bieber looks like he's back. He's only thrown at 91 last year, and he's
Right.
gotten up to 94 in spring training. So it seems like his fastball's back. Tristan McKenzie seems like he's healthy. And then you have the 3 rookies from last year: Logan Allen, Tanner Bybee, and I'm drawing a blank on the third one. Jared's gonna. Which one? Oh yeah, Logan Williams. Jared's helping me out because he's the other reel. So
Oh, no,
they're
it's
5
fine.
starters. If they stay healthy, they could take that team far. They got a lot of kids, but a new manager, Tito's gone. Tito's retired. They got hired Stephen Voigt, which is a old base. He just retired a few years ago, but he seems to be like a baseball guy. The players all seem to love him. So I think it's going to just be a question of, can they get enough runs and to get that, because that starting pitching is going to keep them in games. That's those starters should be able to go 5-6 innings a game. You got Clase at the end, to close the deal. So they got a legit closer. They've added guys in the bullpen. I think it's just, can they hit enough? Can they hit enough? And
Right.
I don't know. We'll see.
What was I going to say about that? Guardians, you talked about them. You talked about Klaus. It was one more thing. Who's playing second?
Andres Jimenez to start the year, which he's been there the last couple of years, and he's good. He's solid. Last year he kind of had a down year hitting wise, but he's a Gold Glove defensive player. There's talk that they're starting off with Arise at short, and he's got a chance to do it. And there's the guy that they got from Colorado for Nolan Jones, Juan Brito, who is by trade a second baseman. They've been talking about long term, if one of these 2 shortstops don't work out, the move Jimenez back to shortstop, which is his natural position, and then bring up Brito to play second base. But to start the year, it's going to be Jimenez. I think he's going to be batting second, so he's going to be hopefully the guy that gets on base with Steve Kwan to get some guys on base for Jose, because last year not enough guys got on base for Jose, and we'll see.
And I don't think, is Bell back this year, or is Bell somewhere else? Who's playing first?
Josh Bell.
Yeah,
he got traded last year down to
Miami.
Florida. Yeah, I don't know if because he just signed. Well, his was a 2-year deal, but it was a team, or I think it was the player option. I don't know if Miami. I don't know if he stayed down there or not. I haven't heard if he did or didn't.
So who's playing? Is it Napier that's playing first for the Guardians?
Well, I think it's gonna be Josh Naylor a lot, or he's gonna be DHing. They got the kid Kyle Manzotto from Tampa.
Right.
I don't know if he's gonna make the opening day roster or not at first. So I think it's mostly gonna be Josh Naylor. Jared, who else is playing first? I'll ask Jared. He knows. Who's gonna be playing
He's on the
first?
screen if he wants.
Naylor? Is it just they don't have anyone else, right? Manzardo, yeah. Same guys I said. That's what I thought.
Hey, we're a son-friendly show. If he wants to come on for a second and drop an opinion, he had a mic for a second.
He said I got him right, so.
All right, cool. KG, what you got for me?
I'm pretty much I'm good, because I don't have anything as far as baseball goes. Hockey, you covered everything that I needed, and I'm nervous, and I love being nervous around this time of year when it comes to hockey, because I'm more in tune, especially with the Caps. So I'm more in tune, and I'm like, okay, we can do something here. But you talk about the Raiders, I'm scared, man. You got a new coach that everybody's buying into already, and that I think a lot of free agent moves are going to come out of Las Vegas
They
in a
got cap
good way.
space.
Yes,
Lots of cap space too. So,
and I think Josh Jacobs, as much as I love him in fantasy, I think he is done in the desert. He's talking about going to play with Chicago.
yeah, I
Happy
heard
trails
that.
to you. It's time to start over and get guys in there that want to be there and want to win. So I'm really scared, but I'm excited in the
And
same token.
they liked Zahir White, the kid that played for Jacobs when he got hurt, the last 3 or 4 games. So I think that could be, which is weird because under McDaniels, White did nothing. I mean, he had like 3 carries a game, and it was like got nothing. But then he actually got a chance to play, and prove what he could do. And he wasn't bad last year. And he can catch the ball out of the backfield too. But I still wouldn't be surprised if they get. I'd love to see them add somebody next to go with Devontae Adams. I think they could do a little bit better at finding another guy to help him up. But yeah, it's the first year in a while we're going into the draft and free agency. I'm not already thinking, okay, how bad are the Raiders going to be next year? So it's new.
Well, you say somebody to help Devontae Adams. I'm going to say something. It's far-fetched, but I'm going to say it anyway. What about Michael Thomas? Would you kick the tires on Michael Thomas, the Ben Simmons of the NFL?
I mean, yeah, for a year deal. I mean, depending on, I guess it just depends on what he wants. I mean, would Thomas and Adams go well though, or would they
I
both
would
want the
think.
ball?
I thought you would say a person like a Curtis Samuel. Give them somebody else where maybe you can kick Renfro inside a little bit more on a regular basis. Or even if Renfro's the outside, you have Samuel operating in the slot. And then
Now
you
you
can
want
still
Renfro
do
on the
some
slot.
option. And then talking about Zahir, just real quick, Georgia running back. So he was in the crowded backfield even in college. And I think his nickname was the Hulk, if memory serves me correctly on him. Because he was one of the kids that came out. I think he was I'm gonna say top 5 in his class, maybe in his state as a running back coming out of high school.
Yeah, I think he's got a shot next year, I mean, especially if they don't sign anybody. But I've heard Barkley has been rumored to have gone out there, and I mean he would have played when Pierce was still there, So I could maybe see he might want to go play for AP.
Yeah, definitely.
That would be interesting, but can he stay healthy? That's another running back with some knee issues, so that always scares me.
You got it. All right, KG. Final part of the show, man.
Well, I mean, I got nothing else. I mean, this has been a treat in itself. I've been looking forward to it, and it did not disappoint. I will say that. So I will say thank you to Matty Ice for coming in and blessing us with your NHL knowledge, because it was well needed, well deserved, man. And thank you for answering every question that we got.
Happy to do it. I love, it's always fun getting, and we're getting to the fun time of year. We get to the playoffs, and that's where I love all the sports, but to me, there's still nothing better than being in an NHL arena for a playoff game. The atmosphere, it's second to none, especially getting a loud building. I love it. It's getting to, and then you get to overtime. You're going on your third overtime at midnight, and you're just waiting for somebody to score a goal to win it. It's just, nothing beats it.
I give you the overtime, but I still think a baseball game 7 is up there.
I can't argue with that.
Or a game 5 in the championship series. I felt the pain, and that may be from me personally, just experiencing that St. Louis game 5 with the Nats, and how that building that night was electric the whole night. And then once you start seeing the wheels fall off, it was just like you were just trying to do anything to stop it. You would change seats. You were like, I mean, we did everything we could think of to try to break it, and it just wouldn't go right. And then Storin gave it up in the end. And I never forget that next day, you'd have thought somebody in my family passed away. You thought I broke up with my longtime girlfriend. I was done.
Wow.
The rest of that Saturday, I was no good to anybody.
To remind me of those heartbreaks, just remember 2016 for the than Indians.
Yes, sir.
Rajay Davis hits that home run, and that place is going crazy. And I'm still convinced if it doesn't have the rain delay,
Right.
I think the Guardians win that because the Cubs were rattled, but they got
Mhm.
30 minutes to regroup and calm themselves down, and then they came out, got the couple runs, and you're a Josh Kipnis 5 feet foul ball away from winning it in the ninth inning on Chapman. It just yeah. That was, you want to talk about the ultimate heartbreak of coming all the way back in that ninth inning and Rajay hitting that shot and then just to lose it.
There's either, and I don't know how they're doing it, but I thought I heard Carmen and Lima talking about either there's a documentary on either that Game 7 itself or that series, or I don't know, remember which one it is.
I
So
remember that they did one on this. I think it was on the series, and which I
okay,
watched. I watched it, but then I couldn't. I could. It's hard. It's still hard to like.
no, that's
Every time
exactly what they said.
every
That's
time I see
exactly what
the
they said.
shot
They
from
couldn't watch
Rajay,
it. Yep.
it's just hard. It's like, because what, the ending hasn't changed.
Right. Exactly.
and the ending still sucks. I'm sure Cubs fans loved it, but that ending was, especially watching it with my son, with Jared. I mean, we're actually in a hotel room in North Carolina watching that Game 7. So when Rajay hits that, we're all screaming up and down, and then we're just sitting there like in disbelief when it. And my mom had called me on. It's the running joke at the family whenever she calls, because she called me right after Rajay hit the home run. Are you happy? I'm like, what the hell are you doing calling me? You don't call right now.
He's the Eddie Mush. All right, man. Well, I know KG thanked you. I thank you because you were hilarious to me. You hit me like Tuesday with like a rundown with a list of everything you wanted to do. So I knew you was gonna be ready. I wasn't worried about the preparation. But thank you as always, man.
Absolutely.
Before the playoffs start, we're gonna have another conversation with you.
Happy to do it. I'll try to chime in whenever I see something fun on the in the chats, like I always do too. So appreciate you guys having me on for sure. It's always a blast.
Anytime,
Most
man.
definitely. I say let's shoot for right at the end of the regular season so we can really get that playoff talk and we can pick a over under and who's gonna win it all. Who's gonna win Lord Stanley Cup? That's the only Stanley Cup that we recognize around these parts.
Yes, exactly right. It's the greatest trophy in sports. I'll stand off on that ground all day long. I think that should be what here? April. Let me look here.
We'll figure out the logistics, and we'll call your agent. Make sure you're free.
April 18th is the last day of the regular season.
Bet. What is that?
That is a Thursday.
That works. That works. Another Thursday night throwdown, the 18th. I'll put that in the calendar.
So, you want to do the Thursday, or you want to do the games will probably be happening right after
that?
that.
I would imagine game ones would probably be happening on that Sunday.
Yeah,
probably Sunday the 21st would probably be the first games if they're ending on the 18th. That'd be my guess.
So we'll jump in early and start picking them.
Sounds good.
All right.
You ready?
For the NHL extraordinaire, Matty Ice, for the Midnight Rider, down below, I'm the big guy, KG. You know the motto, baby. We don't do no overtime. We are out of here.
Just under.